everybody was talking about how we need more credit. We need to get money into the banking system so we can get more credit. We don't need more credit. That's the problem. The economy runs on credit. They want consumers. The government wants people borrowing money to buy stuff. You're not supposed to borrow money to buy stuff. You're supposed to have money. You're supposed to earn money and save money. And then when you can afford stuff, then you buy it. He thinks, Barack Obama, he thinks credit is the lifeblood of the economy. It's the cancer. Now, credit is appropriate for businesses. Businesses need credit. That's why we have to save our money, so that businesses can have credit. Because when businesses borrow, they create wealth. They make capital investments. They produce products. They provide services. They provide employment. That's what we want. We want businesses to be able to borrow money. Well, they can't borrow it if consumers are borrowing it all. They can't borrow it if the government is borrowing it all. So we've got to allow the free market to divert credit away from consumers so that businesses can have it. Unfortunately, the only way to solve our problems is to do the exact opposite of everything the government is doing. Now, it reminded me of any of you guys watched Seinfeld, but there was an episode where George Costanza decided that he was going to do the opposite because he knew that every instinct he ever had was wrong, and that if he only did the opposite, then maybe he would succeed. Well, if Congress just did the same, every time they have an idea, if they could just figure out the exact opposite of that idea and then do it, because Tom Woods mentioned that Ben Bernanke has never been right, and he's been consistently wrong. He's never gotten anything right. But if he just could figure out that being consistently wrong is as good as being consistently right, as long as you're consistent, because whatever he says, the opposite is going to happen. So what we need to solve our problems, right? We don't need to make government bigger. The government solution now is we need more government. We need less government. That's a stimulus. Right? If you're trying to run a marathon, how do you stimulate the runner? Put more weights on his back or take weights away? Right? Government is a burden on the economy. So if we want to stimulate the economy, we want to shrink the government so the economy can function. Interest rates are zero. How can that be right? How can that be the real interest rate? Nobody is saving and everybody is borrowing, and the government is telling us interest rates should be zero. They can't be. They got to be much higher than zero. And the question is, when interest rates are too low, you're creating problems. You're distorting the economy. Decisions are being made, money is being spent that are not supported by legitimate savings. We need higher interest rates. Interest rates have to be raised, not lowered. Now, people say, well, how can we raise rates? Banks are going to fail. Real estate prices are going to fall. Yeah, that's right. They have to. We can't maintain artificially low interest rates so we can keep prices artificially high. What long-term damage does that do? So we need to raise interest rates, not lower them. And, of course, we need to encourage, and this is something that higher interest rates will do, we need to encourage savings. We need more people to save. Well, if interest rates are high, people will save. We need to discourage people from borrowing. And if rates are high, people won't borrow. That's what we need to do. We're not going to spend our way out of this mess. People think, here we have this huge economic crisis. Well, how did we get into this mess? Well, we just borrowed a lot of money and now we're broke. So, okay, well, what's the solution? Well, let's borrow some more and spend that. They think that we dug this gigantic hole. And the only way they can figure out is, well, let's dig it deeper and maybe we can get out. We got to reverse course, right? We got to do the opposite of what we did to get into this hole to get out of it. So we have to produce our way out of debt. We have to save our way out of debt. That's the only way to do it. And again, we can only do that if we shrink government, because with huge government, it makes it very difficult to produce. And if we don't have any savings, then our entrepreneurs are not going to have any capital. And one of the questions I got, on one of these recent talk shows, is that, well, Peter, if you're going to get elected, you're going to have to try to convince the Chinese and the Japanese to keep lending us money because the government, we're selling all this debt, and these are your constituents. We need them to loan us money. And my answer is, no, I don't want them to loan us money. I don't want that money, because we got to pay it back. You know, whenever the government borrows money from China, we're supposed to pay it back with interest. Why do I want the Chinese loaning the United States government money? I want them to stop. Because if they stop, then the government can't spend. And people will try to question my patriotism. You want the Japanese to stop buying our bonds? Yeah, I want them to stop. Just like I want a drug pusher to stop selling drugs to drug addicts. And what are we doing? What is the U.S. government doing with all the money they're borrowing from China? They're using it to undermine our economy. They're using it to make government bigger so the private sector shrinks. They're using it to encourage more wasteful and unnecessary consumption.